Hey there, Saguto golfers. Tom Saguto here, PGA member, founder of SagutoGolf. Hope you had a fantastic weekend. And in this episode today, I'm going to be sharing my golf swing transformation with you so that you can understand some of the changes that will happen as you transition from a traditional golf swing into the more stack and tilt single plane style of golf swing, the simplified golf swing that I've been teaching you on this channel since it began. Well, let's get started with the episode. Subscribe to this channel if you want the best ball striking of your life, because I'm gonna help you get there in a body-friendly and simplified manner. This is one of the earliest swings I have on record. This is from my days of playing at the Bridges Golf Club in Abbottstown, Pennsylvania. I played a lot of golf there. And I was working on something called hands in, club out. But at the same time, I was a shifter and a lifter, so I'd shift back, lift my arms at the top. Well, in this swing, I was so fed up with shifting and lifting and getting the club sucked low like this behind me in the takeaway that I decided one day, I'm just gonna turn my chest and keep the club out like this. And then, like, no matter what happens, it's gonna stay out in front of me. I'll loop it around like this. Well, turns out I was actually onto something there. I hit the ball very well doing that, very consistent. Even played some of my best high school golf doing that. It looked really loopy and loppy and doopy, but it worked because the club would stay out in front of me and on the down, and it would end up being like one plane at the top here. My arm was on my shoulder line, and then it would go under like this. Perfect downswing path. Well, I went to my instructor and I started doing that swing, and he said, no, stop doing that crap. And so we went back to lifting and shifting, and I said, man, I can't catch a break. Everything I do is wrong. Well, I had actually been doing the right thing, and I was onto something, but I was told otherwise because it was not lifting the arms high enough. I was not shifting enough, which is frustrating because sometimes you end up getting onto something that's good only to find out that it's wrong, even though it's really right. My early college days when I was a two-plane shifter lifter extraordinaire, you can see in this first video, I'm working on hinging my wrists up, making sure the club's staying on plane. And at this time, I was being taught some golf machine type things, like getting the club on plane, but it all revolved around this philosophy of swinging the club, rotating your hands toe up, and then lifting it up in the air on this shaft plane. So I had to go toe up and hinge my wrists up to here. And ideally, that would get me on plane. And one of my biggest problems was always being off plane because I was such a handsy shifter, lifter type of golfer. In fact, I would always roll low, go high, and then chop down like you wouldn't believe. So I'd just taken a golf lesson in this video, and I was spending all this time working on making sure that I take the club back, straight back in the takeaway, and then hinge my wrists up. So that's why you're seeing the big exaggeration of this with this. And just me always looking at it, because I used to play the swing position game and check and make sure every 10 seconds my swing's on the proper path. Very difficult game to play and using a lot of hand-eye coordination. Not only that, the instructor recommended that at the bottom of my swing, I rotate my hands as hard as possible to get it square. So I was feeling like wrist was hinging up here, and on the way down I had to rotate as hard as possible like this. Actually, this was the feeling, because my club face was so open. No wonder it was open. It was toe up in the beginning of my golf swing right here. It was open already, so I had to close it on the way down, close the door. That's a lot of hand-eye coordination. No wonder I was still playing some terrible golf. Now, here we are at my Coastal Carolina days. The first swings you're seeing here are some of the biggest shifting and lifting swings I've ever done, and that's because that's what I was taught to do. I was searching the internet, a million different instructors on YouTube, and going through every single tip except anything related to stack and tilt, because stack and tilt was evil at the time. Everything I was being taught to do was make sure you get it here in the takeaway, lift your arms up, shift your weight. And so I was doing exactly that, and you can see that. My swing is directly a result of that, especially when I had that crappy inside rolling of my hands takeaway I could never get rid of. I always roll it and then do this, and you wonder why the game was so frustrating. I had all these moving parts that I couldn't coordinate. With this swing here, that was my freshman year of college, and that was right around the time I was about to quit. And that was a last-ditch effort, really. I was working on making sure my wrists hinged up in front of me like this, because the only thing I could do to prevent the club from rolling was by hinging my wrist straight up in the air and then trying to drop the club in some fashion. I was still pretty steep. I still played pretty inconsistent golf. I darn near quit at that point. Now, enter Stack and Tilt Tom 1.0. So when I switched to this system, I was really reluctant, but I had no other options because I was down in the dumps. When you're at the absolute rock bottom of your golf game, where you're willing to try everything and anything, it doesn't matter what you do, that was where I was at, and I was presented with Stack and Tilt, which is a fabulous simplified system to play great golf. I was reluctant, but within 3 or 4 balls, I was playing my best golf ever. I hit the best shots of my life just by doing hands in, shoulder down, weight forward, those simple things. So now what you're seeing is progression of me starting out in Stack and Tilt. And so you see the early pieces starting to form. My biggest problem in the beginning was the shift like this, turning my back to the target, keeping my weight back here on my trail leg. You see this massive diagonal line here. So I had to change that to this, get over the ball. That felt like a world of difference. It felt like this. So when you start making changes in your golf swing, and you're coming from this position, that's an exaggeration, but I see some people do this. When you come from this to all of a sudden turning the shoulder down, it changes your golf game immensely, but it feels weird. You're gonna feel like your shoulder's down here in the ground. So as you go through making these changes, just to make sure you're actually doing them, it's gotta feel weird, and you gotta suffer before you get better. Next thing I made was swinging the hands in. Instead of getting the arms so high and lifty, which was one of the root problems, I lifted up, I chopped down. Yeah, I was a big old hack somehow trying to play good golf. Well, I had to swing the club under, around my body more. So it felt a lot of times like my hands were hip high, and it felt like the swing was about a quarter, it was like a quarter swing. It felt like I was only taking it back this far. But you look at the video and you're right here. Perfect. So I went from lifting and shifting to centered over the ball and hands in. And then the next most important thing, the weight was staying forward to help me be centered. So I put the weight on my front leg, keep it there throughout the swing, gives me more hip turn, keeps the shoulder down. Well, that felt weird too. It felt like my weight was 80% here, sometimes 100, like this. This was actually what the swing felt like. And then in reality, it looked like perfection. So when you make changes, recognize that is going to be the case, because if it doesn't feel different, you haven't made a change. In terms of how my swing progressed over time, when you get into a new system and something that's working really well, you get so excited about it and you want to improve it as fast as possible. Especially when you're somebody who's afraid you're going to lose your swing the next day, so you spend all your time on the range hitting millions of balls. Well, that wasn't the case with Stack and Tilt. It was actually the opposite. I really didn't have to practice at all, which was great because I was always working. But when I practiced, I got better, and when I went out and I didn't practice, I was still playing where I was without practicing. It was because the information is the same, it works when you do it. One of the biggest problems I had was my perfectionism, my desire to perfect the motions. So I got the Stack and Tilt book. I had guidance from my instructor at the golf course who really preached the same type of message. So I was diving in head first into this information because it was working so well. I was absorbing as much as I could because I wanted to understand why everything I'd been doing in my life was wrong up to that point, and now all of a sudden this swing system here that's so much easier is making my life a lot more fun in the golf world. So what happens when we start doing that is you begin to overdo motions. So you're seeing concepts like the hands in and the shoulder down. You're starting to see me as I transition into this swing and I start working harder and harder at it. You start to see the club go very low like this in the golf swing where the club's way behind me. You start to see my tilting of my shoulders going like this. So I'm a little discombobulated. And it's all part of the learning process because this is new to me. So over time, my swing was really, really low. I'd go up and then I'd have a steeper downswing. And that was producing some odd shots, as well as some inconsistency issues for me. And that would be with me for about a year because I'm still trying to figure out things, and I'm doing most of this self-taught on my own with limited guidance. Because when you're at school and you're in a PGA golf management program, you just want to figure it out. And I think it worked out better that way because having gone through all of these changes and overdoing almost everything in this swing system, I can better help you learn and understand exactly what's going on. I've been through the process and I've overdone the process. Next, we come to a very high point in learning this swing system. I discovered that if I wanted to be consistent at all, I've got to take the club back so that the hands are in, the club's out in front of me, kind of like I was way back in the day. But this position ended up giving me a downswing look like this, and that's where I wanted the club to come from. I knew all of my inconsistency was coming from chopping this way in the downswing, so all I had to do was keep the club more out in front of me. And so I started focusing and working on moves like feeling the club going straight back, even though it wasn't going straight back, it was just going out more, and I'd still get to the perfect place at the top of the backswing. I caution you, however, when I was in this type of swing, I wanted to keep the club going straight back more, so I accidentally locked my lower back, and I had a fake hip turn. I would just do this with my legs, and that was causing stress on my lower back. So that didn't feel great. I played some awesome golf, but my hips weren't turning, so I had some lower back stress, and I had to find a way to fix that. So now we fast forward to today, where it's a much more natural hip turn, not a forced hip turn. Nothing is forced. That swing I had back there in 2014 was very forced, so I wanted to find a way to eliminate stress, and the way I did that was just by freeing up the body to turn, taking the chest, turning it away from the target, keeping the shoulder down, just taking that chest, that torso, turning it and allowing the club to follow. That seemed to put everything in line and get it to work really, really simply without any body pain. This is the simplest way I know to swing the golf club, because it just starts with getting the right setup. You get the arms straight, you connect them to your side. Now your torso here is the engine of the swing, and everything will follow it. Everything follows the torso. No positions to think about, you hit all the positions. And that's why you're able to go out and play your best golf in a really short period of time with this, because you're not spending all this time on the range thinking about what you're doing, you're just going out and doing it. And it feels great. I could do this all day. My swing just revolves around going back to, how's my torso turning? Is the shoulder down enough? Am I turning my torso down enough? Free up the body to do everything else. Are my arms straight? Really simple. One of the biggest things I came to understand was the importance of keeping the club swinging in a circle around your body. You want one point of contact every time. Once you get this idea of the swing circle, changes your golf game forever. One point of contact every single time, just making sure the club is hitting the ground in that same spot every time. If you can do that, you can play great golf. Doesn't matter who you are, what swing you have, you got to be able to do that. That's the #1 swing key. So then you start taking the swing and rotating around your body, around your spine, keeping the weight forward, and everything works. Not bad for a 6-iron. So then we can just come outside and hit a million golf shots clean, ball first every single time, based on these principles. So Saguto golfers, when you're making changes, and if you're getting a little frustrated, understand that I've been there with you. I've gone through this whole process. I've overdone the swing. I've gotten into the bad positions. I've overdone it, done the wrong things. You always got to bring yourself back, but you've got to check when you're changing your swing over to a system like this. You've got to make sure you're making the motions. 99% of the time, when a student comes to me with a problem and they say, your system isn't working, I say, are you videotaping yourself? Are you ensuring you're making the right motions? And 100% of the time, they're not. It's not an issue with the system, it's an issue with how you're implementing it. Because you're not matching up what you need to feel with what's real. So you might be saying, well, I tried this tip. I tried to get my hands in like you said in that one video, and it didn't work. Well, here's what happens. You go out in the range, you spend all day thinking you're doing this, getting the hands behind the shoulder, when you're actually still lifting your arms doing this. You don't make a change that way. You've got to make a change by measuring what's going on. So I'm a huge fan of taking video. If you know what to look for, take a video. then you know exactly what's going on. And you can say, yes, I've got the hands in behind my trail shoulder. I'm not lifting the arms. Then you say, where is the issue coming from? That's where it's really helpful to have an instructor, such as a stack and tilt instructor, or you can go to me for an online swing analysis lesson type of thing. It's really simple. You just got to know exactly what to work on. And having that roadmap will save you a lot of time and struggle. You just go out there and play your best golf. So Seguto golfers, if you're looking to get in on a simplified swing system, step-by-step, 3 to 5 minute videos, I walk you from foundation to finish and cover your whole golf game. Check out Saguto.golf, $10 a month for the price of a Starbucks coffee. You can play your best golf. Just go out and do it right now. What are you waiting for? Thanks for tuning in tonight, checking out my swing story. I hope this helps you understand even more what it's like to go through a change like this. It's dramatic, but once you get it and understand it, you've got it. It's not going anywhere. I can tell you, it gets a lot simpler when you come over to the dark side. I will see you on Wednesday's episode, where I'm once again wearing a tuxedo. And we're going to talk a little bit about how we can shorten up your backswing and how your grip might be contributing to your overswinging problem. I'll see you on Wednesday.